All right, guys, very excited to get you this video on my EMAs and VWAP strategy. I recently put out a thread on my Twitter and got a super positive reaction from you guys. I can already see that there are a bunch of you utilizing this strategy in your day trading and utilizing it effectively. The reason I wanted to make this video is to clarify some of the questions that you guys had. Using this strategy is not necessarily an exact science, but what it does is it allows us to identify momentum. And that is very, very useful. So for me personally, as a momentum trader, what I like to avoid is trading against the trend. I'm not simply buying at levels of support because they're support. I'm simply not buying puts at levels of resistance simply because they're resistance. I like to be trading with that tailwind behind my sales, right? I want to have that momentum on my side. So what does that look like? I'm going to start by going through this example, okay? This was a very, very choppy day last week in the S&P 500. SPY traded practically sideways, but we can still see how using this strategy could have been very, very effective, okay? You have to think about trading a setup or trading a system. If you can limit yourself to taking only the most ideal trade setups, your hit rate will not only increase, right? But you're going to end up being more profitable because of the fact that you don't need to win 100 trades to be a profitable trader. It's a very, very common misconception. Some of the greatest traders I know will trade and take 20 trades a month, 10 trades a month, 5 trades a month. Once your account grows to a certain size, it's no longer about taking every single trade every time you see even a small opportunity to make money. It's really about putting yourself in a position to only play the best possible setups. And that requires patience and that requires discipline, but that's really what we're trying to do here. So let's take a look at this choppy day, terrible price action. Most would look at it and say, I don't know how to trade this. You can't trade this. Using this strategy, you can absolutely trade a day like this. So the first crossover we see here is to the downside, right? So this was a pretty big 5-minute candle here. If you would have entered on this candle or even the next candle, you still would have been profitable. So this is the EMA crossover below VWAP, something to be very, very mindful of. We know for a fact that price at some point has to retrace to the 9 EMA, okay? So the further you buy off of the 9 EMA, the lower your risk versus reward becomes. Because I know if I'm buying here, there's a gap, right? There's a gap to the 9 EMA. If I'm buying here, the gap to the 9 EMA is even bigger. So I have to be very, very careful of where I'm actually entering. You're still trying to enter as close to support resistance as possible. You don't want to be chasing just because you see a crossover. But the beauty of taking this crossover is that VWAP is overhead. So we know that VWAP can help us to identify a trend day. VWAP can serve as heavy support or resistance. So if VWAP is overhead, I have that working in my favor. I know that the bears are in control in this particular situation because we're below the EMAs. We see a crossover, momentum showing that we're going to trade lower, right? Crossover to the downside. That's all this means, guys. And we have VWAP overhead. So the bears are in control. It's time to buy puts. It's not time to, look for levels of support. That's not what I like to do as a momentum trader. I want to trade with the momentum. The next opportunity, guys, crossover above VWAP. This trade could have paid nicely, right? And obviously, difficult day to trade, right? But you take the setup, a couple times, you take your small wins, you identify, hey, this is a choppy day. We're trading sideways. I don't want to get way too aggressive, but you're still able to make money even under these conditions. So now, when I talk about crossovers above or below VWAP, here's what's important. And before I do that, actually, there is something important that I'd like to know about taking this trade. You cannot forget or disregard horizontal levels of support and resistance. This was that high of day area where price failed. We know that this is already heavy resistance. So if taking this crossover, I have to be very, very mindful of that. So exact same concept as you don't want to take a bullish crossover heading right into VWAP. Well, you don't want to take a bullish crossover heading right into really, really strong support. So what you can do, if you don't enter here, right, because this is right when the crossover was happening, that's your best entry spot because you know you at least have a little bit of room to resistance. And then if you break, you end up with a really nice trade. If not, you could stop out for a small gain, or maybe even you take some off here. It's a small win, right? But if you're buying right here, you're still buying into heavy resistance. So you have to always be mindful of that. Now, the next crossover. When I see a crossover above VWAP, that's a bearish crossover, I'm definitely hesitant, but the best way to play this is to wait for confirmation under VWAP. So if price breaks below VWAP, as it did here, confirms 5-minute candle under VWAP, I would look to enter this trade on the next candle, okay? This would have been another winner. See how this is simply just playing momentum, guys? And this would have, again, been a small scalp, but that's just how we traded on that day. Now we have this again, a crossover below VWAP. Now, again, taking a look at horizontal levels of support and resistance, taking a look at it if we're breaking VWAP. Yes, we broke out of VWAP, but you already know that this is very, very heavy resistance. So would it be smart to take this trade here? Not necessarily, right? I don't only look for that momentum, but I want clear skies, right? In either direction that I'm trading. This, however, would have still resulted in a small win if you would have scaled out at resistance, right? Just simply playing the crossovers. When you see a massive candle like this, that is really, really strong selling, okay? So we see a couple large 5-minute candles, volume increasing on this move, right? Volume increasing in these candles. So we know that this is a strong move to the downside. Now we see that crossover. We're below VWAP. Entering this trade, right, would have been really, really nice. This crossover would have paid. But again, you have to be mindful of resistance here. Those would be your scale out points. But if you take this entire day and look at how garbage the price action was, and if you still only traded those, solid looking setups, which were those EMA crossovers, you still would have been able to make money. Now let's go to another trading session. Okay, so I want to review this trade because it's actually a trade that I took myself. This particular trade was in the Qs, QQQ, and there was a beautiful crossover to the upside, guys. Literally was licking my chops, does not get any better than this. Early in the day, right? Green candle, red candle, green candle. Lots of confusion there. Lots of people entering trades, making bets on where they believe price is going to head. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on here, right? I have no idea. But what do I wait for? I wait for that crossover. I wait for that indication of momentum. Now we have a crossover here of the 9 above the 20. That's a bullish crossover above VWAP with very little resistance, right? Because we're already facing. So if we look back, our resistance of pre-market high would have been what I would be concerned with, right? This is not a major level of resistance, okay? So again, just taking into the big picture, what's actually going on, right? We still have to be mindful of horizontal levels of support and resistance, as I was saying before. So this is a trade with clear skies, right? Momentum above VWAP, no horizontal levels of support or resistance. And it just worked out so perfectly, guys. And, this trade, you look back in hindsight, and these went 200 to 300%. Obviously, this was perfect. And when you look back, it's like, okay, that was the ideal setup. It doesn't always work out like this. But what this strategy allows us to do is it allows us to put ourselves in a position to win. And that's all you can ask for. It's not about, making 1,000% return every single time you take a trade. I could have taken this trade and, we this, for whatever reason, this like, weak level of resistance, just bats us down and we trade sideways for the rest of the day. And it would either be, a small loss or maybe I took some off. But the point is, if I see this setup, my ideal setup, crossover above VWAP with very little resistance to the head, I'm going to take that trade 10 out of 10 times. And if it doesn't work, I'm not going to be upset. But that's my system. And that's what I like to look for, right? So I took the trade, ended up being a massive winner for us. And that's really all you can ask for. So again, it really just comes down to putting yourself in a position to win. Now, I hope that this video helped to clarify exactly what it is that I look for. This strategy takes a lot of patience. What you see throughout the trading day are several good setups, right? What I try to do is I try to limit myself to great setups. A higher hit rate, even if that means taking less trades, is going to result in you being more profitable, guys. So again, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be making more videos in the future. I'm continuing to put out content on my Twitter. Kane Cap as a whole is continuing to put out content, and we really appreciate your guys' support. But again, I hope that this video was helpful. If you liked it, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because again, we do have much, much more content on the way for you guys. Have a good one, everybody.